you're looking for the best values in your Dynasty drafts or just some players to look for in this rookie class going into the 2026 season, we're going to be going over all of it today. I have 5 rookies that I think are above value from maybe their original spots or just landing spots that I absolutely love for these cats. But real quick, if you enjoy these styles of videos, make sure to drop a subscribe down below and leave a like on the channel. It's absolutely free. You can undo it at any time. Now let's get straight into it. Coming in at number 5 is Brennan Thompson. I know it sounds a little weird. It's not a lot of people have been talking about him. He's lower on the ADP list, but if you saw the reactions that came out of the Chargers draft room when they were looking for this kid, you know this is the exact piece that Mike McDaniel wants in his offense. As we all know by now, Mike McDaniel runs a ton of orbit motions. He runs jet sweeps. He runs a ton of flares. He runs a ton of these different motions with guys out of the backfield, and a lot of times it used to be Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, and especially Devon Achane, but now they don't have that. Obviously, they picked up Keaton Mitchell in this offseason for the Chargers, but that's not going to be the needle mover for this team. And this wide receiver core, if you look at it, it is Quentin Johnson, Trey Harris, who are both bigger bodies, and then it's Ladd McConkey, and that's about it. And Ladd can't be doing everything, as he's probably going to end up being the focal point in a lot of the passing schemes, which means he can't be the motion gadget guy, and they're not going to be using Keaton Mitchell much in this role, I can't imagine. And we all know Amari Hampton's definitely not that guy. So what can they bring in to make this work? It's going to be Brennan Thompson, a kid who ran a 4.26 40, was used in this exact manner at Mississippi State, motioned all over the field, played inside, played outside, was able to be used in different directions. I get he's a little bit smaller. He's an undersized player, but if there's anybody that can utilize undersized players, it's Mike McDaniel. So for a 4th round draft value, plus you can get him in the 3rd round of your Dynasty drafts, and on film, everything matches up. This kid is going to be the perfect fit in the Chargers scheme, and I think he can really carve out a role that becomes to be a PPR guy in the short field, that in this Chargers offense, when you've Justin Herbert as your quarterback, they're going to have a high passing volume. I can imagine that he's going to end up being a dog. At my number 4 slot, I have Nick Singleton. We made a whole film breakdown on him earlier this year, so if you want to see the actual full film breakdown, you can go check out that video. But for now, Nick Singleton looks to be a perfect fit in Tennessee, and you're probably asking why, God. I mean, there's Tony Pollard in front of him. Tony Pollard has 1 year left in his deal from an organization that is no longer there. Pretty much everybody that used to be the Titans front office, everybody that used to be the Titans head coaches, all that sort of stuff, they're gone. Now it's Nick Singleton being drafted into Brian Dable's scheme on Robert Saleh's team, and Nick Singleton is one of the most athletic backs. If he were able to have competed in the combine and didn't have a broken foot, he would have absolutely blown everything out of the water, as he's been doing since freshman year. He broke Saquon Barkley's touchdown record, and he had the momentum to be one of the top backs to come out if he would have came out of the draft the year before. He's an athletic freak, 5-star player, and his patience and maturity behind the line of scrimmage are something that I think will translate to the NFL. Combine that with his long end speed and his good size at 6 foot 220, and he's only a 22-year-old. This feels like a perfect match for someone to take the role from Tony Pollard about halfway through the season. Is he going to be a guy that's going to be a big producer probably this year? Probably not, but I could easily see a back end stretch where Nick Singleton starts taking more snaps and snaps and snaps away from Tony Pollard and becomes the focal point of this offense within a year or so. Taking the stress off of a Cam Ward is probably Brian Dable's number 1 thing right now, and we all know how much Brian Dable loved to run the ball, as we saw with the first few games of Cam Scatterbo, as we've seen him utilize Tyrone Tracy in the past. Nick Singleton can also catch passes. He's a very versatile player. Now they have a 3-headed monster there in Tajay Spears, who always ends up being hurt. Nick Singleton and Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard's going to be out the door, and I think Nick Singleton's going to take that lead. Is he going to have a 100% snap share? Obviously not, but I think he can easily carve in a pretty big role over time and end up being that lead back and taking this by the reins. It's a great landing spot. Going behind a vet with only 1 year on his deal, this to me feels like a really good spot for a running back. Pair that with my number 3 spot as Katron Allen. It feels like he got the perfect landing fit for him in an offense where the running back room is completely wide open. Bill Krosky-Merritt did absolutely nothing last year to prove that he's going to be a lead back or a consistent back at that. And now Katron Allen falls to Washington in the 6th round, and he's going into a David Blau offense, who not only has played with Cliff Kingsbury, but now coached behind Cliff Kingsbury, is now taking Cliff Kingsbury's spot. To me, that makes me feel like this is going to be a very similar offense to a Cliff Kingsbury offense that got this team to the NFC Championship. And if that's the case, we're going to be seeing a lot of RPO, zone power schemes, the same thing we kind of saw out of Penn State in the past, where we're going to be looking at the 5'11", 220-pound back to be able to maneuver through the holes as he normally does and find these pockets to gain a lot of ground, and he's for sure going to be the goal line back. Bringing in Rachaad White does not scare me for goal line opportunities. He might be a reliever in the receiving game. Katron's not that much of a receiver, so that's understandable. Bill Krosky-Merritt is not much of a receiver himself, and he struggled in the run game. He might start out slow. This offense might start out with a little mix of Bill, a little mix of Rachaad White, and then over time time, Katron Allen could definitely carve out a role. He was one of the most efficient backs in all of college football the past 2 seasons, and he might not be the biggest big play player that you're not going to get these huge, massive runs out of him, but he's going to be a very consistent, methodical runner, and he's coming out of one of the running back U's in college. I always have high expectations for Penn State backs, like we just talked about with Nick Singleton, and he's played amazing in college so far, and I think he's going to be one of the more polished backs to come out, and that's what Washington needs right now. So I feel like Katron can definitely make a role within this year or next year and be a part of this offense going forward. And you get to grab him at late second round value. To me, that's a no-brainer. Coming into the number 2 slot, we have Zachariah Branch. To me, this was an absolute home run hit for the Falcons. Obviously, he did a little bit of the offseason issues. Shout out the Falcons. They seem to have a lot of that right now, but for the most part, it was something tiny, and he's going to be fine. This kid's super fast, 4'3", 540, 5'9", and built like an absolute truck. And he goes into a situation where it is wide open. Right now, it is Drake London and the rest of the crew. You have like Jahan Dotson, Alameda Zacchaeus, Pacey Washington. Like, you don't have guys, Devin Thompkins. You don't have guys that are going to be prominent roles, where I think Zachariah Branch could be the #1 slot receiver for this team and kind of take that role from Jahan Dotson and being the wide receiver 2/3 here. He's a guy that was used all over at Georgia, attacking the middle of the field, the outside of the field, in the backfield, in motions, in everything, in orbits. He was a guy that got a ton of line of scrimmage looks as well. And we all know Kevin Stefanski wants to get the ball out quick, and I can easily see a mix of deep balls and over the middle crossers to Drake London and checking it down underneath to Zachariah Branch very often. You get him in the 3rd round, which means they prioritize him pretty highly. And this kid is an absolute spark plug and can be used in almost like a Deebo Samuel-esque role, where he comes out of the backfield, he comes out of these different formations. He can be used all over the field, and I feel like Kevin Stefanski is going to have a lot of fun with him, putting him in a ton of different spots. Plus, you can snag him in the middle of the 2nd round in dynasty drafts. To me, that is a no-brainer when you're going to be taking guys like Denzel Boston over him, who's going into a wide receiver 3 role in one of the worst passing offenses. And I get the quarterback position for Atlanta right now is shaky, but with Tua there, at least you know you're going to be getting manufactured targets and checkdowns. And when Michael Penix comes back, you're getting the same thing. They're pretty much, to me, they feel like the same player at this point, where they're going to be looking to check down very often with Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Zachariah Branch. It makes this offense feel like it can be easy. Good offensive line, and I think he can end up being a steal in the middle of the 2nd round for most people. And then my #1 value, if you guys have seen my rankings, if you checked them out by now, and if you haven't, they'll be linked in the description below. But if you've checked them out, you know I have Antonio Williams absurdly high. If you saw my video on him, I made an entire breakdown on his film. This kid, I think, can absolutely crush, and he goes to the perfect landing spot. Again, David Blau, the Cliff Kingsbury offense. We already talked about this. And now you add a slot wide receiver who's shifty, he's smooth, he comes out of his breaks, has low hips, attacks up the field, is fast, and now you're getting him at value. He was a 3rd round pick for a reason, and now he goes with Jaden Daniels, who loves to be checking down to these short wide receiver screens, to these over-the-middle looks. Like, you saw some of the games before the injuries and everything, Debo was having games of like 7, 8, 9 receptions with him, just because the offense runs through these tunnel screens. They run through the quick RPO looks. Who could be the guy to get those? It's going to be Antonio Williams. I promise you it's not going to be Treylon Burks. I promise you it's not going to be Diami Brown. I promise you it's definitely not going to be Scary Terry. Antonio Williams can come in and really attack this slot role and be a part and be a meaningful piece in Washington's offense as a player who does really well in space, and they can use him even out of the backfield like Clemson did. They can move him in all different spots. He will be a key chess piece to be a PPR monster at some point in time, whether it's this year or next year. I think the immediate impact would be this year, though, as long as Jaden Daniels stays healthy, and you're getting him at great value in the 2nd round. I'm reaching on Antonio Williams pretty much everywhere because I feel like the value here is so much better than some of these other receivers you're taking in front of him, who might be bigger names out of the draft, sure, but they're going to worse situations where they're going to be kind of piled under the depth chart, or there's a lot of question with injury concerns. There's other things that are going on where Antonio Williams has had a pretty solid career, was supposed to be drafted a lot higher, but Clemson fell off. He took a dip. They snagged him in the 3rd round, and now he's going to Washington, which is the perfect landing spot for a slot wide receiver right now in an offense that's going to be centered around quick targets. I think Antonio Williams can make an impact, and if you can get him in the middle of the 2nd round, that's some great value. If this helped you out at all, if you're like the talking points, if you want to talk about it in the comments below, if I missed someone that you think is really high, let me know. Drop it down below. Leave a like. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out.